Heard of Applicaster before? No, maybe not. Okay. Do any of you work in TV? You all work in TV? Excellent. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the second screen today and what we're doing with broadcasters around the world to help them take advantage of the second screen, both for editorial and for advertising. And I'm going to show some of Applicaster's products. So what does Applicaster do? Applicaster makes apps for broadcasters. So we make this kind of app, video apps, and we make them for companies around the world, like, for example, Televisa in Mexico, Caracol in Colombia, Mega Chile, but also MediaCorp in Singapore, Mediaset in Spain, etc., etc. So we're working with quite a lot of companies around the world, and TV broadcasters who've decided to outsource their video apps. So TV broadcasters who've decided that they don't want to develop and build things in-house, but they want to outsource it to somebody else. So obviously we supply all video delivery, so what you would expect in a broadcaster app, for multiple channels, live and on demand, categorization, EPG, personalizations. EPG is like a TV guide, yeah? So you can go into the TV guide and say, and put a reminder for when you want to watch. So all standard things you would expect to find in a broadcaster app. But we don't just do that. We started off doing that, but over the last 2 years, we've integrated a lot more functionalities as broadcaster needs have evolved, and also customer viewer needs have evolved. So what kind of functionalities are those? Interactivity, second screen, social media integration, a product called Crossmates, which is for scripted, which I will show you later on in the presentation, 360 ad solutions and program support. So basically the Applicaster philosophy is that a broadcaster app can and should be much more than just delivering video. And we provide effectively a software as a service, one-stop shop solution for broadcaster apps to broadcasters. So here are some of the channels that we work with. As I said, we're working with over 40 TV channels around the world. Our head office is in Tel Aviv in Israel. We have offices in London and in Singapore, and we're about 70 employees. We've been going for about 5 years. So just to talk about second screen for a minute, and look at the history of second screen over the last 5 years. You know, I remember 5 years ago going to every conference was about second screen and the potential of second screen. And I think it's fair to say that it hasn't really lived up to the hype that we were expecting 5 years ago. Well, what has happened in that time? Well, here's some of the ways in which second screen has been tackled over the years. Here are third-party apps, and below are apps controlled by broadcasters. So on the top, you've got social media. Now, there's no doubt that people are using Facebook and Twitter while they're watching TV. And these have massive scale and also very useful tools for broadcasters, for marketing purposes, for certain types of interactivity. But I think there's still a question mark in a broadcaster's mind as to what is the ROI for me of pushing so much to Facebook and to Twitter and to all these places. What am I getting back in return for that? Also, there's a limit to the amount of interactivity you can do. So you can organize a poll on Twitter, for example, but it's hard to create a bespoke, rich solution, interactive solution for viewers. Shazam have been getting into the second screen game, so especially around advertising. I don't know in your markets whether that's the case, but certainly in the US, they've been doing a lot. Again, question marks. They've tried some experiments in the UK as well. Question marks about the user friendliness. You know, of holding up your phone, listening to the ad. By the time the ad's over, sometimes you've missed it. And sometimes the conversion rates are relatively low. And also, again, from a broadcaster's perspective, it's pushing traffic to somebody else rather than to your own platforms. Then you have these generic TV companion apps, like Viggle and GetGlue, TV Tag, ZBox, and so on. And none of them have really taken off. They haven't really achieved the scale that they hoped for at the beginning. Why is that? Well, I think that they fall in between two places. They're not as powerful communication tools as Facebook and Twitter, and they have no way to impact the show that you see on the screen. And so for that reason, they haven't really achieved their potential. Down here, you have the broadcaster efforts, and you have show apps, which have been quite successful. So an app for The Voice, or an app for American Idol, or for X Factor, or whatever, which can be quite successful, but from a broadcaster's perspective, it's quite expensive to be building an app for every specific show. And also, once they've used it, and then they all go away, the season's over, and that's it. And that's a big issue for broadcasters, putting out apps for every single show. So in response to that, a lot of broadcasters built their own standalone second screen apps. So in Europe, for example, Channel 4 created an app called 4Now. ProSieben in Germany created an app called ProSieben Connect. Caracol have Parlar TV, which is driven by Applicaster. This can be a good solution, but it's quite tricky because, again, you're asking a consumer to download another app apart from the main broadcaster app. And the other problem with it is what happens at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. You know, it's not particularly interesting to go into that app. It's a fairly poor user experience. And so a lot of these broadcasters are now phasing out those apps, ProSieben, Channel 4, etc. And so the Applicaster approach is the best thing to do is to consolidate everything. Sorry, I didn't realize you arrived. Is to incorporate the second screen functionality into the main broadcaster app. And it's a trend that we're seeing more and more in Europe, and a lot of our clients are now doing it. They're integrating second screen interactivity into the main VOD app of the broadcaster. And that's the sweet spot. And what does it give you? Well, it gives you scale, because if you take any territory and you think about what are the most used and the most downloaded apps in that country, well, you'll always have Facebook and Twitter and all the big social media guys. You'll have Candy Crush and Angry Birds and all the big games. But actually, the only local apps, usually, in the top charts are the broadcaster apps, the main player apps. And that's an incredibly strong position that broadcasters have. I'm not even sure that they realize what a strong position that is. The marketing power that they have, that, you know, a very heavy percentage of the population already has their VOD app on their phone. The other thing that a broadcaster can do that a lot of these, they control the first screen. So they control what happens on the first screen, which means if they want to make it possible for you to vote in their VOD app, they can make that happen, which these other guys like Vigil and GetClue couldn't do, and which Facebook and Twitter can't control. So that's a huge advantage. And in the VOD app, you can give people a much richer second screen experience than you can via Facebook or Twitter. The benefits for the broadcaster are fairly obvious. First, you're driving users to your own platform instead of somebody else's. So you're creating a virtuous circle between second screen and VOD. You're not giving away your revenue to some other third party. You have a cost and process efficiency. So again, going back to the show apps, instead of building a solution for every single show, you're building a solution within your main app, and you're using that across all your shows. So you're saving money, and you're saving time to market, and you're making it more cost efficient within the organization. And lastly, once you have that set up, you can use it not only across your shows, but you can also use it across advertising. And I'll look at some examples later of how that can happen. So this is an example of how the Applicaster product works. So one of the issues with second screen, as I said, is what happens at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when second screen isn't particularly interesting, or a type of programming, for example, a drama, where you don't necessarily, the user isn't expecting a second screen experience from the broadcaster. Well, the answer from our perspective is don't give them one, just leave it. Don't have anything in the app providing a second screen experience. But when you do have a show, like The Voice or The X Factor or whatever it might be, the presenter does a call to action and says, open the ITV or whatever Televisa app now to play along. And when they open it up, we have something called a sync button in our system. This is how it looks like, and you can put any brand, whether it's an editorial brand or an advertiser brand, and it pops open inside the app, and it's extremely clear to people that, okay, now I just tap on that and I go straight into the second screen experience. So it's time-based. And that can be synchronized either manually, so a producer can trigger it when the moment happens, or it can be scheduled in advance, so you can put in whatever time you want it to happen. Or we also have an integration with a company called Civolution, who do watermarking within the video stream, so it's kind of inaudible sounds, which are picked up by the microphone on your phone, which trigger the event on the device. So there's 3 ways to schedule. And then once you've triggered the event, our system allows the broadcaster to create any number of different types of interactivity from the CMS. So he could create a poll or a slider or a quiz question or whatever, give it the background he wants, give it the colors he wants and the logos, etc., all from his own CMS, depending on which show it is. So for example, it could be a poll. This is an example of a poll for The Voice, a slider, voting, so he can create a voting template, or multi-cameras. So we do that with Televisa in Mexico for football, where the commentator says, open up the app now to have multi-cameras on the thing. They open up, they hit the sync button, and they go straight into this. Also, part of our product is something called a feed. And the feed is basically a linear feed of interactivity and content and social media in real time with a live event. And so again, from the CMS, the broadcaster can change the background, can change the colors, the logos, everything, and make it look different from show to show. So it might look like this for the voice in the evening, and the next day he might create a totally different look and feel in the CMS for a football match. And this allows, again, without having to build something new for every single show, something different for every single show, the broadcaster can do it. Literally takes 5 minutes to set up a second screen feed and pop it in the broadcaster app. The other thing, the functionality that this has is you can post and tweet to Facebook and Twitter from the feed itself. So the user doesn't need to jump from Twitter back into the broadcaster app and so on. The functionality is all there. A product that we're about to release as well, so it's a kind of a new version of the feed which is specifically designed for football or other sports, in this case with football, and it has some enhancements around it. So for example, at the beginning we ask you who you're supporting, and once you tell us who you're supporting, that will change how your feed looks and the colors of your feed, and also the social that you will see. You'll see fans of the same team, etc. Obviously you have content, you can put in replays. Also we have kind of micro shout outs, so you can hit, shout. It's a bit like, I don't know if you know about the success of the Yo app with very short interactions that people enjoy. So this allows people to shout out when there's a goal or make an exclamation on social. Also included predictions, so they can predict what's going to happen in the next few seconds in the game, and gamified. So there's a leaderboard that you can build over the football match, and you can have a winner at the end. Also included in our system is we have integrations with all the main graphic systems, so VisRT and Chiron and all, etc. And it allows to do things like this. This is from Telecinco, Survivors, which was earlier this year, and they were doing live polling through the broadcaster app using our system, which also includes a moderation for social avatars. So they were able to moderate all these to make sure that nothing untoward appeared in the studio, no obscene pictures, etc. And all of that functionality comes with the system. So you're not just, it's a full service solution for a broadcaster. So that's all editorial stuff, but to look at how you can employ it across advertising. And it was interesting today in one of the earlier sessions, there was some research shown how in advertising a multi-screen approach is bigger than the sum of its parts. It was described as it's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 3. So if you can hit consumers on 2 screens instead of just 1, you have more bang for your buck. And this is an example of how the sync button could be used for Coca-Cola, for example. So instead of a broadcaster using Shazam to push people to the second screen, why not use your own broadcaster app and use the sync symbol on the ad and say, open the Televisa ITV app right now to get whatever offer it is, or to enter our competition, and sell this functionality as a premium to your advertisers. Here's another example of something that we've done with advertisers, is competitions around shows. So this is before The Voice, and in the promotion for The Voice, we said check in on the app when The Voice starts at 9 p.m. on Wednesday, and you could win an Xperia phone. When the show started, again, call to action to check in now, and to make sure that people were actually watching the show, there was a quick question about the shirt of the guy, and you had to answer, okay, he's wearing the blue shirt. Obviously you're logged in with Facebook, etc. We pick a winner during the show using the system, and then do an overlay at the end saying congratulations, you've won the phone. So it's a very simple way to integrate a brand into a competition, and all of this is possible with the system across all of the programming. Of course, you can also use it to buy products. So there was an example with one of the broadcasters we worked with in Israel where they did a huge promotion with Domino's, and they used the sync button before the show started, and they would show the sync button, hit the sync button now to order a pizza and get a huge discount. And they sold a record number of pizza. And this example is for fashion. But once you start educating your users with the sync button or whatever symbol the broadcaster wants to use, this means open the broadcaster app and you will get X. And once you start using it again and again and again, viewers will become educated that that's how they get interactivity from you. And also, I think, at least that's our experience in Europe as well, broadcasters have traditionally split their calls to action across lots of different places. So some say go to the website, some say open this app over here, the show app, some say open the main app, and it's all very fragmented. And the whole idea with this approach is you bring it all into the broadcaster app, which is where the most value is. Okay, so that's the kind of live synchronous second screen activity. Now I'm going to show you a different product called Crossmates. And Crossmates is a product that was designed to work around scripted programming. So not entertainment, the traditional talent shows, etc., that everybody talks about with second screen. This is more about scripted, and it's also more about what happens in between the episodes rather than during the episodes. There's a nice video that explains how it works, so we'll roll that and then I'll explain more afterwards.
Amanda, will you marry me?
Oh, Ridge, I just don't know anymore.
She's calling a lawyer to cancel a restraining order.
No way. She's calling Steve. She never got over him?
Honey, don't marry him. He's still sleeping with Carmen. Mm-hmm. I know.
Carmen?
Sounds crazy?
What?
For millions of viewers worldwide, this is already a reality. Crossmates, an exciting cross-platform experience that creates a personal connection between TV heroes and audiences. So, how does it work? In line with the TV show's plot, viewers receive communications from their favorite characters straight to their personal mobile devices. The heroes communicate while the show is on or off the air, strengthening the relationship with the viewer and building anticipation for the next episode. Crossmates provides a two-way conversation experience where audiences can interact with their heroes in the same way they interact with their close friends. Text, photos, questions and consultations, voice messages, and even videos. Like in any friendship, the relationship develops over time, and characters can learn personal details about their viewers and integrate them into the conversation. Crossmates' guiding principle is that each viewer can only follow one character, so they each get different pieces of the story. This drives the viewers to share information with each other, making sure your show is all they talk about all day. The more active a viewer is, the more he gains, as devoted users are rewarded with secret information and prizes. Crossmates also provides the perfect opportunity to improve relations with your sponsors, as characters can integrate sponsored products into the conversation and provide their followers with discounts and coupons. It can even remind them to tune in and watch your show. Crossmates is adjustable to all TV formats. Drama, sitcom, reality shows, teen series, or even cartoons. As long as there are characters in a story, Crossmates will make them a part of your viewers' lives. Crossing platforms, crossing boundaries, Crossmates.
Okay, so that's Crossmates. So you get the first thing to say is it shows at the beginning it's kind of a bit tongue-in-cheek. You don't actually get a phone call from the character or even an SMS. What it is, it creates an inbox in the broadcaster's app into which you receive messages from the character. So it's a little bit like having a WhatsApp relationship with a character. That's how it works. It's two-way, but only in the sense in which it's simulated two-way. So, for example, a character might say, oh, I have a big date with David this evening. Should I wear the blue dress or the red dress? And you can answer the poll, red dress, and then you can put in pre-filled feedback. So the character might say, oh yeah, I like the red dress, true, maybe I'll wear that. Tune in tonight to see if I do. And the other thing about it is it's not very demanding on the user. So it's just an inbox, and they can check it, you know, a couple of times a day or not, or just before the show starts. So you're not demanding like the other stuff, the second screen stuff. You have to do this now during the show or you miss out. So Crossmates has been a real success story for Applicaster. It's now running in 5 territories on 5 different shows, with more to come. One other really important point about it is that they made in the video was that you can only select one character. And the reason why that works really well is because you feel that you have information that other people around you aren't getting. And therefore you're more likely to talk about it and more likely to share it. Crossmates started first with Televisa on a telenovela they had in Mexico. And that same telenovela was exported to the US on Univision, and they also took Crossmates with it, and including all of the content that had been made for Crossmates and the tech, and embedded it in the Univision app in the US. So the digital part traveled just as the show traveled. Here are examples of the kind of messages you can have. Obviously photos, images, video, polls, as I mentioned, and text. And just to give some flavor of results, so in Univision, for example, which is a major broadcaster in the US, the biggest Hispanic broadcaster in the US, 30% of their main app users used Crossmates every month. So their app is for all their programming, but 30% of their users use Crossmates for that one show. The other interesting statistic is 3 times as many people use Crossmates as watched episodes of that show in their app. And they had about 2 million page impressions in Crossmates per month. And it's hundreds of thousands of users. The other thing it does for the broadcaster is some of the broadcasters elect to have a push notification every time you receive a message. I think it can be a little bit over the top, but actually the tolerance for users to have multiple, sometimes 10 to 15 push notifications a day is really, really high. But then I guess telenovelas are a little bit of a religion in this part of the world. So then looking at it from a commercial point of view, the sponsor of that telenovela on Univision was Toyota Tundra, and they specifically said that they wanted a 360 sponsorship around the show. They didn't just want the TV, they wanted the whole package around it as well on digital. And so Crossmates was a huge part of the sell to Toyota to be a sponsor in that show. So how was it integrated into Crossmates? Well, obviously there was branding all over it. With the videos, for the loading, the videos tend to be very short, like 10 to 15 seconds, so you can't make someone sit through a 30-second pre-roll. So instead there was just a still image for the loading screens. But then also, most importantly, it was woven into the stories that the characters were telling. So into the video and the text that they were telling, just as it was in the show. And the results were that they just recently released the statistics that Toyota Tundra said, and they specifically said it was their transmedia sponsorship of that show had driven 18% sales growth amongst Hispanics. And they were particularly pleased with the Crossmates part of it. And it goes back to that point I was saying earlier, the research in the other room, is that if you can reach people on 2 screens, it's so much powerful than just one screen. And so they were delighted with it. So Crossmates is now running Mexico, US, Israel, Singapore, and it's about to be launched in a couple of other countries. And we're also looking at how we can adapt it to other types of formats. For example, there's no reason why you can't use it on a talent show and have real people, the contestants in the talent show, giving you an inside view of their lives in the competition during the week, and maybe asking you things like what dress should I wear, what song should I sing, and then it actually really translates into the first screen. So that's Crossmates. So that's all that I've got for you today. Hopefully it's a good overview of what Applicaster is doing around the world. If anybody has any questions, I'm not quite sure how Q&A works with these microphones. There's my email address if you want to follow up on anything. Yeah. Have you got a question? Yeah, go for it. How does it cost? Yeah. So basically, Applicaster runs a software as a service model. So there's a small amount for integration at the beginning. So it kind of depends if you want a whole app or if you want to integrate one of our products into your existing app. So there's a small integration fee, but mainly the business model runs on paying a license fee based on active users per month. So it depends on how much it's used, and you pay accordingly. And there's different bands of usage, 0 to 250,000 users a month and so on. And there's a monthly license fee. But it's a lot less expensive than building things. And I think that's the trap that broadcasters sometimes fall into, is building and spending a lot of money, either building in-house or building bespoke every time for different shows. The idea is, for example, with the second screen stuff, that you plug it into your app and you can use it across your entire schedule. So it should be quite cost efficient. Anything else? No? Okay. Thanks a lot.